Over 72% of Texas Republican voters indicated on the last ballot proposition that they supported closed primaries. No Democrats allowed. So tell me how, in a state full of Republican officials and a Republican majority, the Texas GOP's only option was to sue the state of Texas in order to get it. Gosh, it's almost as if Texas isn't as red as we think it is. So what does this all mean, and are we going to finally close the primary? Let's break it down. Welcome back to Come and Take It. I've missed all of you. No shortage of things to talk about, including the Republican Party of Texas has filed a federal lawsuit against the state and Secretary of State Jane Nelson under the premise that we don't have closed primaries. The Texas GOP has indicated they want closed primaries. And they say in the lawsuit that by not allowing our party to adopt closed primaries, the state is essentially violating the Texas GOP's First Amendment right of freedom of association. So essentially, we've already indicated in our books, we want closed primaries.
For the love of God, please!
If you guys are allowing Democrats and also independents, by the way, if you guys are allowing people in other parties, if you are allowing Democrats to participate in our Republican primary, what the hell is the point of a primary anyway? Why are we doing all of this? This just seems ridiculous. This seems all for show. If we can't be the only ones who participate in our own primary system. I mean, if you think about it, the entire purpose behind a primary election is so voters of the respective parties can decide who they want to coalesce around. And in this case, as in the case of a general election, majority rules, right? Whoever gets the most votes in their party before they move on to the general gets to be the guy, their candidate. This is your party. Who do you think best represents you? You get the opportunity to tell everyone in the primary election. And I don't buy any innocent explanations anymore for not wanting a closed primary. Like if you are someone who is obstructing being able to achieve closed primaries in the state of Texas, or if you are defending people who are essentially blocking Texas GOP's ability, and honestly, the Democrats' ability as well. If you are blocking anyone trying to create true closed primaries in the state of Texas, I don't trust you. I don't think that your explanation is innocent. I don't think that your reasoning is innocent. And I understand, I want to get this out of the way, okay? I understand as we talk about this discussion, as we navigate this issue, I understand it's more complex. It's not black and white. It's a little nuanced. I understand that there are some independents who may float back and forth. Maybe in one election, you really like the Republicans, fiscal responsibility plan, which I don't know. That's kind of gone by the wayside as well with Republicans. But let's just say you really like the Republicans' fiscal responsibility here. But then there's a Democrat that for some reason isn't completely crazy. And you really like something that they're talking about in the next election. I understand. I understand that there are some independents who, depending on the time, depending on what society's going through, they may like one particular candidate from one particular party more. I understand the tendency of independents to float back and forth. However, what I would say to them is tough. I don't want you voting in a primary for my party. This is my party. Okay, if your political designation as an independent in and of itself proves that you are not, in fact, a card-carrying member of the club that is holding the vote, I don't want you deciding my candidate.
Absolutely not.
And that shouldn't be controversial, and it's not meant to be mean, and it's not meant to hurt anybody's feelings. But if you are so wishy-washy and you go one way one election and you go one way the other election, maybe you shouldn't be one of the deciding people who gets to decide who represents the Republican or Democrat Party. I just don't think that that's fair. I don't think that it's fair to the card-carrying members of the party. And by the way, for the record, I don't actually have a card. It's not a literal card. Okay? It's just the point is, these are principles, these are values, these are morals that I believe in, so much so that I do things like go to the convention, like push for the party's candidates election after election after election. I mean, it diminishes the value of the party if someone who just can't make up their mind which way they want to float every single election, they got to go back and forth, gets to then designate who is the candidate for that party. I don't think independents should want to do that either. You really want the responsibility of choosing the candidate for another party of which you don't belong? Join us or vote in the general, period. Those should be your only options. And by the way, if Texas implemented the rule similarly to the closed primaries that already exist in, say, Florida and New York, voters would actually have, because I know there are a lot of people who would be like, but that's not fair. What if they really want to become a Republican before the primary? They actually have an opportunity to do that up until about a month before the primary election. You can change your affiliation if this mimicked the systems that already exist in some of those other states.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
So you can't say, well, but they want to change. They just don't have an opportunity. No, you are allowed to change your mind. You're just not allowed to game the system. There is a difference. And if you can't make up your mind up to, a month before the election, you still can't make up your mind which party you'll want to swing that election, you shouldn't get to decide who the candidate is. And you can have all sorts of feelings you want about it. That's just not what the system is supposed to be. So how did we get all the way to a lawsuit? We are in the state of Texas, after all, because despite Texas Republicans iterating and reiterating numerous times at all different points at the convention in San Antonio, on the ballot, in a proposition, in public polling, in legislation, we want a closed primary. A closed primary is the direction that we want for our party. You are going to be shocked to hear the Texas legislature didn't do what their Republican constituents urged them to do.
I've never been more shocked.
Okay. Could you tell? Was I selling that I was shocked and not at all just incredibly underwhelmed by this Republican majority they claim that we have in the Texas legislature, and yet nothing gets done, including this closed primary issue? Who needs enemies with friends like these? I need to just restate that every single time something like this happens. Who needs enemies with friends like these? And there are some out there who would say, well, this doesn't even really affect anyone. Like, Republicans get their Republican primary, Democrats get their Democrat primary. This is what races are these affecting? These are very real issues. There are very real, very close races. They happen to be with RINOs. But there are very close races in the state of Texas that could have been affected by a closed primary, that could have resulted in a more conservative candidate being selected had it not been for the Democrats meddling in the Republicans' primary, which perhaps is the point. Oh, who'd have thunk it? Perhaps that's the point of leaving it open, because we're in the state of Texas. And the Democrats know they're not are we going to get a whole bunch of Democrat candidates who win in all of these plus, Republican plus double-digit areas? No, but we could get the squish. We could get the squish. We could get the RINO, because you see, Democrats are mostly stupid, but not all of them are stupid. So they've gathered enough information to know that in some of these areas, like let's say, my area is, I think it's R plus 17 or something crazy like that. You're not going to run as a Democrat candidate and win. You're just not. They understand. They see the writing on the wall. Bless your heart. But no, honey, you're not going to flip an R plus 17 district and have all these Democrats vote for you. You're just not. Especially because most of the time, the Democrats are terrible candidates. So the next best option for a Democrat is obviously to figure out which districts you want to just take the Republican primary ballot and vote for the squishiest RINO on there. The Democrats know. Oh, okay, our guy's not going to win. Like, we like them. They're our friend. We'd actually much prefer them. But we're going to vote for the loser who cares more about bipartisanship and pleasing the other side and working across the aisle. I love it when they say that. I want to work across the aisle with my Democrat colleague. Why? Why? The Democrats don't want anything reasonable or rational done. What do you have in common? What could you possibly have in common with these people? And the Democrats know if they vote for the loser who cares more about reaching across the aisle and working with Democrats than they do about delivering real results to their own base, which, as a reminder, by the way, Democrats would never do. When the Democrats get the majority, if they ever get the majority here in the state of Texas, they will never, mark my words, they will never show mercy to Republicans. They will never reach across the aisle and be bipartisan. They will jam everything through that they possibly can because the ends justifies the means for them. And we already know this.
That's a fact.
Okay? But the Democrats realize if they game the system, if they vote for the squishiest person out there, the squishiest Republican out there, it's the lesser of two evils. That's what they've determined. That's what this essentially has become. The Democrats know that in their mind, they're voting for the lesser of two evils. This is literally how we've been stuck with some of the worst Republicans in the state. Looking at you, Dade Phelan. Sorry, gosh, that was a weird cough that I just had. When you look at how terrible former Texas Speaker of the House drunk Dade Phelan was, not in this last session, but the session when he was the speaker, and you look at that primary election, you look at his runoff, because remember, it went to a runoff. That election went to a runoff, and in the primary runoff between him and Covey, Dade Phelan only won by less than 400 votes. It was like 380 or something, give or take, votes that Dade Phelan won by. Democrats were blatantly saying out in the open they went and voted for him so that they didn't get his much more conservative opponent. I believe that the term that they used was far right wing, because that's supposed to be, the connotation there is supposed to be like worse. I think it sounds more awesome personally, but they say that it's worse. So they're like, oh, we don't want that far right David Covey. He believes in things like, abortion is evil. Abortion is murder. Unborn lives matter. Children shouldn't be indoctrinated in schools. Like really far right-wing stuff. We should vote for Dade instead because Dade loves working with the Democrats. We'll at least get more done. And don't believe me? I'd just like to read you a headline back from that election, from that primary runoff in Texas Monthly, the very right-wing Texas Monthly.
Right.
Just kidding. Texas Monthly, of course, is obviously left-leaning. And using the term leaning there, by the way, is giving them a lot more grace than I should. So from Texas Monthly back then, Democrats finally won a big Texas election. Maybe it's complicated. Is it? I don't know. Let's see from the article. According to Derek Ryan, a Republican data guru who maintained the Texas GOP's voter file for 2 decades, 1,100 early voters in this race, or 7% of all early voters, had voted most recently in a Democratic primary. And by the way, it says in parentheses, as good an indication that someone is a Democrat as exists in a state without registration by party. So let me just stop for a second, okay? What that's saying is that many early voters, just the race before, or the primary before, voted Democrat. What do you think that makes them? So it even says, while we don't know for sure whom these voters cast ballots for, it is likely that a good chunk supported Phelan, who is very conservative, but to the left of Covey. And he won the early vote by 962 votes. Based on this data point, this is this Republican Texas GOP data guru He says, based on that data point, it does appear that Democrats helped him win this race. Remember, 962 votes is how much he won the early vote by. I'm not saying all of those are Democrats, but I'm saying if at least 7% of them were, as this indicates that they were, he only won by less than 400, and that's not even counting Election Day. So you think that the people who just most recently voted in a Democrat primary are going in and they're voting for the way more conservative Covey? Of course not. These Democrats were going in and they were voting for Phelan because they said, well, we don't want the super conservative guy. We already know our person's not going to win. We'll go vote for them in the general, sure, but we know he's not going to win. So we'll fix the Republican primary. The fix is in. We'll fix it. We'll game the system. We'll go in. We'll get the squish. And then in the general, we can feel good about voting for our Democrat candidate. We know they're not going to win, but at least at the end of the day, we know that our district will be sending a total middle-of-the-road RINO because we helped make that possible, even though, remember, we're not a member of the freaking club. We're not a member of the party.
What are the important things out there in Texas politics and Texas news that matter to you, and what can you do about it? That's what we want to bring you with the Luke Messia Show on a weekly basis for 20 to 30 minutes. That way you can get the information and go do something for the rest of your week. I look forward to coming to you every Wednesday.
That shouldn't be, okay? In that particular situation, you are talking about a former Speaker of the House in the state that Republican voters essentially may not have actually elected. That's a scary precedent to set. He would be that unpopular in the Republican Party, even being Speaker of the House, that there's a good indication that he wasn't even elected by Republican voters. Again, you hear this, and I just want to know, what would be the innocent reason to not want closed primaries in the state? Name me one. Let me know in the comments. By the way, make sure that you're subscribed, okay? Sara Gonzales Unfiltered on YouTube. Let me know in the comments if you can think of just one. I really would like to know it. And again, being independent to me is not one. I think that it's very self-important to say, well, I'm an independent and I should still get a say in your party's candidate. I don't think so. If you can't decide, if you can't, you know what, or get off the pot by a month before the election, I just don't think that you should have a say in a party and their candidate if you're that wishy-washy. You just shouldn't. So since lawmakers won't act, the Texas GOP has had to resort to this lawsuit to give Secretary of State Jane Nelson, who has already said, I'm not going to do anything like that unless the legislature gives me a direction to do so. The Texas GOP waited. The legislature decided that they didn't want to, despite several lawmakers bringing up bills. You're going to be shocked to hear this. Dustin Burrows didn't find them to be priorities and passed them.
You need to leave.
I'm sorry. I always do that. Republican Dustin Burrows didn't find it a priority, even though it is a priority in the Texas GOP platform. And so since all of that was the case, the Texas GOP had no choice. Please, hello, judges, please give the state of Texas and Jane Nelson, give them the directive that they need to do this. Because Jane Nelson isn't going to just go down without a fight, apparently. By the way, just as a reminder, she serves at the pleasure of Governor Greg Abbott, who says he's a Republican also. And so if he has put her in there, then she probably should also be Republican. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. We'll just use the air quotes all day long. So I'm not an attorney, obviously, but I want to read to you before we finish up here. I want to read to you what one attorney who is also, kind of a Texas Ledge insider pays attention to it a lot anyway. Texas attorney Mark McCaig, who I don't particularly agree with all the time, but on this I would take his note, me not being an attorney and not knowing the different districts in the state of Texas. He said it's no accident that this lawsuit from the Texas GOP was filed in the Amarillo division of the Northern District of Texas, and that the Judge Matthew Kasmark, sorry if I mispronounced it, who hears practically all the cases in that court, is likely to be sympathetic to the Texas GOP's arguments. Now, again, I don't know which way Mark falls on this. In fact, I would probably guess that he doesn't think that the Texas GOP should be suing for closed primaries. I don't know that to be a fact. I'm just guessing. Point is, I'm not saying I agree with him on everything. I'm just saying it's a very interesting thing to note if that is in fact true. And they did file it strategically in the Amarillo division, hoping to get this judge who would be sympathetic to the argument. We may have ourselves a ball game here, ladies and gentlemen. And it would not come a moment too soon. I'm just going to go ahead and say, Mark, your lips to God's ears, okay? All of this should be done fair. I'm not, and I mean, I can already hear the Democrats screeching now about voter suppression. That's just, this system was not designed for you to game. This system was designed so everyone could feel like they had representation for themselves. And if you align with the Democrat Party, you should vote for your candidate because that is your representation. And if you align with the Republican Party, you should be able to vote for your candidate because that is your representation. And if you're on the fence before the election, you better get educated and figure it the heck out before a month before the primary. And if you can't do that, I'm not saying I believe in voter suppression, but I am going to say I don't think that you should be voting on things if you can't get educated. You can't get educated enough to actually know these things. I mean, early voting starts, 2 weeks out? 3 weeks out? You should know what you're doing and who you're voting for. And if you can't be bothered to check, maybe it's not a priority for you. And that's fine, but don't show up at the ballot box. I think compulsory voting is dumb. You should not have to automatically vote. We should not be encouraging people to go to the booths if they have not done the research. If you can't figure it out by then, just sit it out. It's fine. So we will keep an eye out on this particular lawsuit, see how it goes. But if we can get this done in Texas, it could seriously, seriously change these primaries. And we might have another chance at getting all of these RINOs just out of the equation entirely. And that, my friends, could be another defining moment for the state of Texas and for all of the conservative activists who have been working really hard trying to do so. And of course, have had, obstacles in the road along the way thrown there by Democrats and their RINO friends. So we'll keep an eye out. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Again, just one more reminder, make sure that you hit the like button, comment on the video, and make sure you're subscribed to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. Make sure that you are, subscribed to the playlist. Come and take it so that you don't miss any one of these. And we'll keep you posted. There's sure to be more drama in the upcoming special session that Greg Abbott has already hinted that he is going to call because, these people can't get anything done. And then they pay themselves to go back there and get more done. It makes me sick. You didn't get it done in the regular session, so then you're going to pay yourself more to go back into special session. You still didn't get it done in the special session, so you get to pay yourself more to go back for another special session. That's rigged. That's what we call rigged. All right. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time on Come and Take It.